All right, we have so much to talk about, and then Ben Askren had to retire. So we've got a lot to talk about, and Ben Askren's retirement on this episode of Combat Sports Talk. Welcome to Combat Sports Talk, a podcast dedicated to UFC and Bellator discussion, the MMA community, and combat sports in general. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and joining me this week is the man with the keys to victory, John Keys.
Is this thing on? What's going on? It's Combat Sports Talk world. We are back.
We are back. Well, we were back last week, but somebody was having dinner for Veterans Day. Happy Veterans Day.
Well, thank you. It was my honor to serve. 7 beautiful years under the Clinton era, and it molded me into the man I am today.
All right. You blew up a lot of stuff is what you're saying.
Yes, lots of stuff on the taxpayers' dollars. Thank you. Oh, man, we got a lot to talk about this week, man. I tell you, if it ain't one thing, it's another. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm at a loss of words this week.
All right. But let's get right into it. So, announced today, Ben Askren on Ariel Helwani's show, he announced that he is going to retire. He said, "I'm retiring from the sport of mixed martial arts, and frankly, I'm retiring from everything. I've been having hip problems, and I finally had the discussion with my doctor, and I actually got the MRI before my last fight, and I need a hip replacement." Hey, man. What can you say? The guy he's too hip to be square.
Dad jokes already.
Too early.
I think
too early. Too soon.
15 minutes in, then we can go for the dad jokes, man. He's done it. He's done what he wanted to do. He came in and he set a precedence.
Did he? I mean, so let's talk to our fans. In case you don't know who Ben Askren is, so Ben Funky Askren, 35 years old, from Phoenix, Arizona. He fought at welterweight. Dude ran through his competition, fought at Bellator, was 9-0, went to ONE FC. He was 8-0, and then he came to the UFC after all these years, and his career took a drastic turn. He barely won his first fight, lost his last two, sets the record for the fastest, getting knocked out in the fastest way possible, 5 seconds, knee from Jorge Masvidal.
Well, you know what? To come to the UFC, it's been said time and time again. This is the echelon. Okay, this is where the most elite fighters come to play. And maybe if we gotten Ben maybe 5-10 years ago, maybe we would have saw a different Ben Askren. But if he's and like he said he didn't want to take anything away from any of the victories that were gotten from him. Okay. He said the fighters were better that night, but if he has a bad hip, that could affect his performance all the way around. But I'm also of the mentality, if you go into that ring and you say you close that door, you are saying you are okay. Okay, fair. But maybe he just he just didn't listen to himself. But
yeah. I just think that whenever you look at the competition, and so this is one of the questions I was going to ask. At the end of the day, was the trade a good trade? And this comes from a story Rich Franklin was explaining, and he's the VP of ONE FC, why the Demetrius Johnson Ben Askren trade was a win-win. I don't think that it was a win-win for the UFC, because they gave arguably the greatest champion that the sport has ever known in Demetrius Johnson, 11 title defenses, and sent him to ONE FC, and he is lighting a fire over there.
Fire.
and the UFC got Ben Askren, who came in there, with all these hopes and dreams, barely beat Robbie Lawler. He gets knocked out in 5 seconds by Jorge Masvidal. He gets choked out by Damian Maia, and then he's like, "That's it. That's all, folks." I don't think the UFC got a good end of the deal.
Yes, they did. Okay, yes, they did. And I'll tell you how it's done. Okay, this has been an ongoing feud between Ben and Dana for years. Ben's always been talking smack about Dana, like, why doesn't he let me in? Cause I spoke my mind, cause I smoke weed, because of this, because of that. And finally, Dana said, you know what? Come on in. I'm gonna show you what it's all about. Why you can't be in here. And he proved to us that once again, you can be the champ anywhere else, but once you come over here, you ain't nobody. Okay, just like anybody from the UFC, Fabricio Verdum can go to somewhere else and beat the most dominant fighter for the past what decade from 2000 to 2010. All right, that's what he got. He got pride. Dana got pride on that one. If anything else, they may have lost money, but he gets to sit back and laugh and say, I got him. It may have cost me my hair, but I got him. Okay.
All right. All right. Well, you know, that's what it is. I mean, Ben Askren, he's out. I got to say this though. As much as a jerk that Ben Askren was before he got into the UFC, I mean, he was always taking, throwing shade and taking pot shots at the UFC, whenever they wouldn't let him in. And then when he finally got in, he was sitting there and just annoying everybody. He finally took his lumps. He was gracious in defeat. I got to say, I became a bigger Ben Askren fan as a result. It's just one of those things where now it's like Michael Jackson gone too soon.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I would love to have seen Ben fight a little bit more in the UFC. I really would have loved to see that, because if you watch his fights from his previous fights, you will see truly a clinic of wrestling. This man is a genius on the ground. I mean,
but I just don't think that you saw. I don't think that you saw him fighting people who were as talented as they are in the UFC. I mean, when you start looking at the UFC, wrestling, it has gotten to be, one of those foundational styles that everyone has to have some level of wrestling. When you go over to ONE FC, the fighters are a little bit smaller, and a lot of them are Muay Thai fighters. A lot of them are, some other type of striking art, maybe some jiu-jitsu there, but a lot of them are not wrestling and not American style wrestling. I don't know if it's Greco-Roman or whatever, but
it could be either catch can or Greco-Roman, either one.
But the point is that it's not a skill set that they have a lot of over there in ONE FC, and in Bellator it was quite a while ago when the sport was still maturing. So you could be a dominant wrestler and still win fights. But once you get to the UFC, where you've got all of these dominant wrestlers and you have these strikers who have to improve their wrestling in order to avoid getting taken down and ground and pounded. But,
So do you think that, and this is just speculation here, that the fact that Dana kicked him out of the UFC, do you think that was a detriment to his legacy?
Wait, I don't know when Dana kicked him out.
I don't know if Dana kicked him out or he just never was signed on.
He never was signed on. Basically,
yes.
as the changing of the guard was happening in Bellator, there were only a couple of options for Ben Askren. Bjorn Rebney did not want to re-sign Ben Askren, and Dana White wasn't taking him either. And so it was like there was no place for Ben Askren to go. And so he went to ONE FC.
That's right, exactly right. Because he said that there was actually conversation about it, and then he flew out there. Everything sounded great. He flew back home and was like, "Nope, there's no deal." I remember that now.
All right, so hats off to Ben. Hats off to Ben Askren. What a wonderful career you've had. Hopefully, you will become a coach and train the next generation of Olympians. And future mixed martial artists. I hope that's a thing that you do.
Well, he does have the American Wrestling Academy. Don't forget that, and he's training people every day. So, hats off. Hopefully, we'll see him in a different capacity, and one that's very fruitful.
All right, let's get into the official decision. There were 4 fights this weekend, 4 cards fighting this weekend. So we had ONE FC, one championship. It was called, what I love about ONE FC? They have they always have a theme name. Like the UFC used to do that, and then they just started numbering them all, and everyone followed the UFC and just in numbering it. But as a differentiator, ONE FC names all of their events, and so this one was ONE Championship, Age of Dragons.
Yes,
it was pretty cool.
Hey, hats off for that, man.
Taking place in Beijing, China. There's 3 fights that I want to just call out real quick. The results: Ming Bo defeated Laura Balin via knockout in round 1. If you haven't seen this highlight, I mean, it's just a pow pow, and that's it. The girl's down.
Much.
It was like.
It's a rarity we get to see that too. That she took a couple of steps back, and you saw her plant her feet. And too bad Laura didn't see her plant her feet, because she would have thought differently. And then it was just good night, and there she went, and she just crumpled to the ground like wet paper. Beautiful. It was beautiful.
Yep. So, we don't see a lot of athletes fighting coming out of India, but Ritu Phogat defeated Nam Ki Kim via TKO punches in round 1. They're saying she's the real deal.
I believe it, because if you see how she's built, she's got a strong. She looks strong, and her ground game was technical. I mean, she got her in a crucifix and just started dropping. She didn't do the big country where she just tapped her on the head, but you see her. She's trying to throw elbows. She's trying to throw punches. My problem with that was the ref let that go for more than 30 seconds of continuous punches. And I was like, okay, dude, I get it. Okay. Even I was at the threshold of the fight is over. Let her up. Okay. So, it is what it is. It was a good win. Hats off to Phogat.
All right. And then Jeremy Maidal defeated Li Tao Miao via TKO via flying knee.
Dude, did you hear it? Did you hear that? It was a clack, and then it was over.
Yeah,
because I actually have my head turned looking at the run sheet while I was doing the highlights just to refresh myself, and I heard the clack, and I was like, "What was that?" And everybody's just losing their mind, and then they showed it again, and it's just like, once again, a beautiful setup, and then he launched in the air, and somehow his face got moved forward, and his knee moved in, and it was a beautiful thing.
All right, well, Bellator MMA for Bellator 234. Karatanov versus Vassell went all the way to Tel Aviv, Israel to have a fight. 3 key fights on this card. Adam Koresh defeated Vladimir Fedin via knockout in round 1. We had Aviv Ghazali who defeated Zaka Fatulaze.
Good job.
Thank you. Via anaconda choke. You don't see those very often as a submission. You just don't. I mean, rear naked chokes, arm bars, sometimes triangles, arm triangles. Those are your key chokes that you see. You don't see a lot of anaconda chokes, so that's why I call that one out. And then Sergey Karatanov, the main event versus Linton Vassell. Vassell won via TKO in round 2.
Yes. 2 things about that. One. The second fighter, God, I just forget. Gonzalez.
Yeah, Gonzalez.
Yes. Gonzalez's father fought before him.
Yes.
And both of them are Renzo Gracie students. Mm-hmm. Both are black belts. His father won with a heel hook.
Yep.
And if you saw Aviv fight, the way he put that anaconda choke on was super aggressive. You don't see aggression like that when it comes to anaconda choke. Most of the time, it's very passive. He had none of that. He grabbed it, he locked it, he rolled them, and had him in a mounted anaconda choke, if that is possible. And the dude's neck still made it. So,
woof. All right, the event that I don't like to talk about, the promotion that I don't like to talk about, Bare Knuckle FC 9. Jason Knight versus Artem Lobov, the GOAT, the T-Rex. 2 from Biloxi, Mississippi. Calling out 2 fights here. UFC alums Joey Beltran defeated Chase Sherman via unanimous decision. And in the main event of the evening, Jason Knight got his revenge against Artem Lobov, and he won via a TKO in round number 5. Dude, Jason Knight, they said that he came out with a technical game plan, and it looks like he executed it. I mean, I was looking at some of the highlights, and he was just lighting Artem Lobov up. Maybe Jason realized that he had what's called a reach advantage over Artem Lobov.
Yeah, just a slight reach advantage. I'm just going to say. I think the intimidation makes up for the reach advantage for Artem Lobov, and I think Jason Knight, after he fought him the first time, he was over that intimidation, so he saw Artem Lobov no longer as the immortal GOAT that he is, but actually saw him as a fighter, and he began to pick him apart with a very technical plan. Hats off for Jason Knight. I think they're going to run it back for a third.
Yeah, it's 1-1 now, and so that we're going to see a rubber match here. I don't know what Artem Lobov can do to turn the tides here. I mean, Jason Knight stood in front of him the first time and ended up looking like a freaking rotten pumpkin. The second time, he looked a lot better after that. All right, let's go to the last one. The UFC Sao Paulo, Blachowicz versus Souza. This was a main event dedicated to Jacare Souza, moving up from 185 to 205. John Blachowicz appears to be the welcome committee for 205. Everybody moving up to that weight class has to fight John Blachowicz, and the result is the same. You will lose.
Yes. He is the gatekeeper. He is the key master, and none shall pass today. All right. One thing I've said about UFC this year is that they have put off some excellent cards. So excellent that if you don't, and this is a shameless plug. If you ain't got the Disney Plus subscription at $12.99, where you get Hulu, ESPN Plus, and Disney, you're doing yourself a disservice. Go get it. Just get it for Spider-Man and the Amazing Friends, if anything.
Wait. Okay? Why don't you just get? Why don't you just get the ESPN Plus for $4.99 and be done? Like, not everybody has little children. Not everybody is into Star Wars. Just get the ESPN Plus $4.99.
Did you not hear the shameless plug about Spider-Man and his amazing friends?
All I'm looking at is Captain America behind you, and like,
he's on there too. He's Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes. They're there too, which is the legit Avengers cartoon.
Okay, this is Combat Sports Talk. This ain't Marvel Universe. That's for a different podcast.
Hold on.
You and George could go after it.
Captain America, he's boxing, karate, judo, wrestling, master several styles. Also master pressure points. Okay. Anyway.
Okay.
So there it was. I did it.
All right.
That's for you, George.
So that was the main event. We also saw Mauricio Shogun Rua versus Paul Craig. They ended in a split draw. Looking at Shogun Rua, I don't know that he actually won that fight. I mean, I saw there was some memes that were coming out. They said that Shogun Rua took so much damage, he ended up looking like Cain Velasquez. And if you look at side by side, Shogun Rua looks just like Cain Velasquez, which means his tail was swollen.
Oh my goodness! You know what? Okay, back to the original thought. UFC in 2019 put on awesome, and I mean awesome cards this year. This was the first one that was kind of subpar in my opinion. Okay,
really?
I was trying to enjoy it, but I couldn't. I wasn't in it. I wasn't feeling it for some reason. Maybe I'm just used to those flash knockouts now, and ultra violent thing. Because I'm a Jacare fan. All right, let's put it out there. I am a big Jacare fan.
Then that's why.
And I was heartbroken. I was heartbroken that he he got beat down. Maybe it's the time. I hate to say it, maybe it's the time.
It's a split decision. I mean, that means that the judges did not agree on who won the fight. So there was at least one judge who thought Jacare won. And the thing is with John Blachowicz, I know there's a lot of people complaining about this fight, but it's like you got a guy like Jacare Souza who wants to get you to the ground. So you have to avoid getting to the ground at all costs, which means unless you've got legit jiu-jitsu, you can't get close enough. You don't want any parts of it. So you've got to pick him apart from a distance, outpoint him. That's the way you have to do it. Like, I don't understand why people get so upset.
It wasn't more that I was upset. I think it's more that I was really hoping for Jacare to win, to just grab him and really get him on the ground and really do what he does best. But it's getting to that point now that you can't be a specialist like that anymore. Well, you can be a slight specialist, but when you got a fighter like Jacare, going up against a Blachowicz, his striking game is way out there compared to Jacare's. Okay, and you need to be a little bit more special, a little bit more hands on to get it to the ground now. Okay, that's the thing that we're seeing. That yes, we did see a resurgence of jiu-jitsu come back, and that's great. I love it, but you're going to have to put a little bit more striking into it to get your fight to the ground, because all fights start standing up.
Yep. And then one fight that did not go, I'm not going to say it didn't go to the ground, but because Jared Gordon ended up on the ground, Charles Cowboy Oliveira defeated Jared Gordon by knockout in the first round. There was your flash knockout.
Yeah, I mean, it's from Cowboy Oliveira. I mean, don't ever sleep on that man. Okay, don't ever sleep on him. He's going to knock you out. Okay, do not ever underestimate him. Do not. I mean, he's like Edson Barboza to a degree. He will knock you out and will do it with a big old cowboy smile. I mean, he's got a Joker smile from ear to ear, and he'll knock you out just as quick with it.
All right, so those were the recaps of the fights from this weekend. 4 big promotions, all doing their best to put on some of the best fights of the weekend. Let's get into Finding the Angles. This is where we talk about the headlines that are making waves in the MMA world. We've got a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. There's still fallout from UFC 244, Masvidal versus Diaz. The first one I thought was a funny story that Nate Diaz is on his way to, I guess, to open workouts, talks to this guy. This guy says, "I'm betting my rent money on you." Nate Diaz loses the fight. The guy tweets Nate Diaz and says, "Hey, Nate, I'm sleeping in my car now because you lost this money." And Nate's like, "Don't worry, I got you." And he really did pay this guy's rent and more.
Yes, he put some money on him. But if you watch the UFC Embedded series, you actually see the guy saying that. And you hear Nate saying, "Man, that's just some weird people out here." And so but that's Nate Diaz. I expect nothing less out of Nate or Nick, because I can remember, God, how many videos have I seen where Nick would walk up on a homeless guy, and talk about his story and everything like that, and Nick's like, "Man, I got $6,000, and he pulled out all this cash. He's like, "Let's get you some help," and I'm like, that is a real man.
Wow.
All right, you're a warrior, but you also are giving a savior at the same time. Okay, that's humility at its finest. And I expect no less from Nate, because Nate idolizes Nick. So it is what it is.
Well, speaking of Nate, though, it was funny because Jorge Masvidal said that Conor was talking a whole bunch of stuff about wanting to fight the winner of the BMF fight until Jorge Masvidal won, and then he's quiet. Mm-hmm. He don't want to talk anymore. So Jorge's like, "Hey, if you want to fight me, still want to fight the winner of the BMF belt, I'm willing to do it." But Conor apparently is too busy congratulating his warrior friend Artem Lobov in defeat. So he ain't talking about, don't say that man's name, Jorge Masvidal, because those knees are real.
Yeah, the knees and the 2-piece and a Coke, or the 3-piece? 3-piece and a soda. 3-piece and a soda. He's got them for you, and he probably knocked that monkey straight off his chest, if he keeps if Conor keeps messing with him. So, I'm still more excited about. I still am waiting on Leon Edwards and Masvidal at this point, but we may never see that.
Right. But I tell you who wants a piece of Jorge Masvidal, and that is the big Billy Goat. That is Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz is really interested in making that happen between him and Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal's like, listen, I'll fight him. He doesn't care. But it was funny because he says, Chael Sonnen says, it's simple economics, law of supply and demand, that you don't have very much Nick. You haven't seen Nick in forever. So if you can get Nick versus Jorge Masvidal, people are going to want to see that as opposed to what we thought originally was going to be a rematch because of the, quote, early stoppage, which I don't. Let me get in camera frame. There we go. Early stoppage. Because I don't think that it was. I mean, it was a pretty dominant fight. Even Israel Adesanya said that when he went back and watched it, he was on the Joe Rogan podcast. He said when he went back and watched it, he's like, this fight wasn't even close.
Well, like I said, I would have liked to see it go all the way, just to see just to make it complete. Because if it was a 5-round ass whooping, okay, and I said it again. Yeah, I know. I think if it was a 5-rounder, there would not be any controversy. Okay, and it would have been over. It would have been over and dead. On to the next. Okay, but because it was stopped by somebody else that did not belong, that was not in the ring for the first 3 rounds. Okay, there's always going to be that. There's always going to be that shred of, well, maybe this, maybe that. Because I even feel it. Okay, I've watched the fight 3 times now. Okay, and even I'm still sitting there saying he should have let him go. They should have cleaned it up, let it go. If it wasn't really bothering, if there was no blood in the ear, I'm still looking for blood in the ear because they said that there was blood present. Okay, I haven't seen blood in the ear. Now, if there was blood in the ear, then yes, stop that fight. It's over. But I didn't see any blood in the ear. They need to run it back.
Okay, I could go and I could make the same arguments that I made last week, but you could just watch last week's show. There's no reason to run this back. We saw nothing from Nate Diaz that would indicate that he could have turned the tide of that fight. That fight was as about as dominant a fight as you could have for 3 rounds, and Jorge Masvidal was never in any danger.
Okay, like I said, I give me a 5-round fight and I'll be quiet. Okay.
The fight probably wouldn't have gone 5 rounds. It would have just gotten more bloody. There would have been more damage, and we might be talking about why they didn't stop the fight earlier. And it's like I'm not. It's. I don't accept that as anything. But since we're talking about Israel Adesanya critiquing the Nate Diaz Jorge Masvidal fight, he talked about a lot of things on the Joe Rogan podcast. So he talked about his fight with Anderson Silva, which was an instant classic. He talked about John Jones. He threw a lot of shade at John Jones. He talked about Yoel Romero, which we'll get to in a moment, but he also talked about Colby Covington, and Joe Rogan revealed something that I did not know before, but I find very interesting.
What's that?
And that is Colby Covington's act, this MAGA hat wearing, blue suit toting around a belt persona is all an act. And we all knew that it was an act. The thing that I didn't know is the fact that the UFC was about to cut him. They were getting ready to cut him, and he did this act, called the people of Brazil filthy animals, and the next thing you know, he's this hated villain that people are paying big money to see get beat up, and he keeps winning fights.
Yes.
And now he's all but guaranteed his career in the UFC for many years to come, and he's fighting next month for the actual welterweight title. I don't like his act. I don't think that it's appropriate, but I gotta say, I'm surprised at his ingenuity here. So I guess my question for you is, knowing this backstory, that this saved his career in the UFC, does this change how you feel about Colby Covington?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Okay, there's a certain thing called integrity. Okay, I'm not going to play an act that's against my nature. Okay, this may not be against his nature, and that's fine. Okay, thank you for showing your true colors. But if this isn't you, then why do something? I mean, there's certain things you can do, and like, okay, but this is really hateful. This is some really hateful stuff that has almost gotten him beat down very badly. Okay,
I mean, it got him hit with a boomerang,
exactly.
and now he's got enemies from Dustin Poirier. He's got enemies from Jorge Masvidal. Stipe Miocic wants a piece of him.
He can't even train in a gym. Okay, he has to train in the backyard, somebody's backyard now.
So,
okay?
It's one of those things. But I just think it's interesting because you were always like, oh, this is like the great WWE persona. He's a great heel. But now you're like, but thank you for showing me your true colors. Like, it's either fake or it's real. Everyone says it's fake, so it's fake.
That's just because everybody agrees to one ideology doesn't make it right. It just means everybody believes that it's fake.
But you yourself believe that it was fake, but now you're treating it like it's real. Okay,
and I'm going to, for the simple fact that he's been pretty good. I mean, there's a point where you're like, okay, this is a bit much. Henry Cejudo, we know it's fake. Okay, you can look at Henry Cejudo and say, okay, it's fake. But for some reason, Colby Covington is really embracing it. And I'm like, dude, I don't know if that's cool anymore. Okay, because some of the things you're saying, some of the way you're acting, some of the things you're doing behind the scenes that fighters have revealed about you, that makes me think twice about you. All right, it's like I said with Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen's probably the greatest mic talker there is. Okay, we knew, even though he is Republican, we knew that was just part of him being the bad guy. Okay, but to me, Colby is just one step away from wearing some sheets to the ring. Okay.
Come on! All right.
Yeah, seriously, I'm gonna throw.
I mean, you don't have to go there. But the thing is,
he's beating the crap out of people.
Yeah, he's winning fights. And so you can't take that away from him. He's a very talented fighter, and things like that. The thing for me is, what made Chael Sonnen so at least fun for me to watch was, he went to war against a Brazilian, not the people of Brazil. He recycled a lot of old pro wrestling monologues and soliloquies. Mm-hmm. So as a pro wrestling fan, I was like, oh, he's just doing Ric Flair.
Exactly.
But Colby Covington, on the other hand, is doing this persona that is ignorant and all those things that I think are wrong with society. He's embodying that and basically bringing this focal point to him. Now, everyone says that this is not him, that he's a respectable guy. I personally just want to see Kamaru Usman knock his block off so that we can see a Colby Covington with humility.
That's what I want. That's the true travesty, is that all the stuff, all his shenanigans has overtaken his display of skill. Because we should be talking about how Colby Covington is becoming a master of punches and bunches. Okay, and he throws the volume out there. If it wasn't for this facade, if everybody would want to call it that, he could possibly have been. I would have nothing bad to say about the man.
Yeah, okay? But he would have been doing it at Bellator if he would have just focused on his fighting, or he would have been doing it at ONE FC, because the UFC would have cut him because no one cared. That's the same thing with Henry Cejudo. As much as I hate the act that Henry Cejudo is putting on, people are actually talking about him now. And that's what you need as a fighter who is facing obscurity because people like Israel Adesanya is sucking up all the air in the room. People like Conor McGregor, people like Jorge Masvidal, people like John Jones. If you can't compete with John Jones on the from a persona issue, from a fan awareness type of situation, then you have to do something to break through that noise. And trust me, I'm not being a Colby Covington sympathist here. I'm just trying to put in perspective the fact that I can see how a desperate Colby Covington could turn to doing this persona and then stumble on something that is, that creates a lot of emotion from people. Okay. I'm just concerned. The big thing, and I was talking to, I got a friend at work. He's a wonderful guy. I'm going to try to get him on the show at some point. His name is Dan. You know Dan.
Yeah, I know Dan.
What I was telling Dan is that I'm concerned because he chose a persona that has, to your point about wearing sheets to the ring, that he's chosen a persona that has an element of racism attached to it. Not calling everyone who wears a MAGA hat racist. Not calling any Trump supporter, all Trump support. I'm not making those general statements, but I am saying that there is an undercurrent of that group as part of the larger base. My concern is that as he's walking into this ring against an immigrant fighter from Africa, and he wins that fight, then he starts to position himself as this great white champion. And his next fight would likely be against Jorge Masvidal, who's a Latin guy. And so you start getting into these things that become a slippery slope when you adopt a persona that has this undercurrent underneath it. Again, for those people out there watching, I'm not calling Colby Covington racist. I'm not saying that all Trump supporters are racist. I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is that the stars could align and we could see Colby Covington stepping into conversations and being in things that he did not foresee when he started this persona a year and a half ago.
And on top of this, where does he go from here? Okay, he can't, because he has pretty much has pushed this persona out so hard, so much, that do you think he can ever walk away from it?
I don't know, and that's my concern, because if he wins against Kamaru Usman next month, he is going to have to lean into it more. He's going to have to embrace it more, which means when he comes up against a Jorge Masvidal, what are you going to do then?
Yeah, because it's not going to be pretty.
So he wins that one, he's going to lean into it more. And so that's the concern, is that with each successive victory, he has got to grow this persona. He's got to lean in it more. It becomes more a part of him because he's doing it for longer and longer and longer. And the Colby Covington that might have been the person that we all respected when he got into the UFC no longer exists. And it is only memories of the Colby Covington that we know today, that carries around a fake belt, that wears this cheap blue suit and wears this Make America Great Again hat signed by Donald Trump on the bill. That becomes his persona, and all of those other stereotypes and things that go with it, right or wrong, that's what he's facing. So I'm almost hoping that Kamaru Usman wins so that we can move on from this persona and we don't have to see this guy in this format ever again.
Let us pray.
All right, let's move on. So since we're in the welterweight division, I want to talk a little bit about Tyron Woodley, because with all this stuff happening, we got Kamaru Usman, fighting Colby Covington. You've got, we just recently saw Stephen Thompson fighting. You've got, all these things. We're not hearing about Tyron Woodley. And Tyron right now is kind of left out in the lurch. Darren Till moved up to 185. So all of these people that Tyron Woodley used to want to bang with, he's left in the lurch. So the only person's left is Leon Edwards. And what Fabian Edwards, Leon Edwards' brother, said is that Tyron Woodley is just one of a long list of fighters who's ducking Leon Edwards, and he's too busy doing his rap career, which, by the way, Tyron Woodley, you're garbage at rap. I'm just saying.
Wow. Hey, remember, it was the guy in the red that said that, not the guy in the blue. Okay,
it's pretty
don't ride
garbage.
up on us, man.
It's pretty garbage. I'm not feeling it. But Tyron Woodley's like, hey, you know what? He'll fight Leon Edwards. He'll settle if that's the only fight that's available for him, even if his son doesn't have any idea who Leon Edwards is. And so what Tyron Woodley was saying is that, hey, my son plays the UFC game. He knows every fighter. He knows everything about every fighter. He doesn't know Leon Edwards, but he's going to try to make a fight of it anyway. And I think that in so much as it's not I don't perceive that as a slam, as it is Tyron Woodley saying it's going to be hard to make a fight between him and Leon Edwards interesting because casual fans don't know who Leon Edwards is and don't care about that fight, even though Leon Edwards is one of the most technical, one of the most feared strikers that you have at welterweight.
Yeah, when's the last time he fought?
Not long ago.
Yeah, because I mean that's the thing. If he wants to get that exposure, he's got to fight more. Okay, go on a. You talk bad about Masvidal. Go on his schedule. Masvidal fought what 5 times this year?
Yeah,
4 or 5 times.
Leon Edwards fought in July.
That was the last time he fought. How many times has Jorge Masvidal fought?
No. Leon Edwards fought in July. Before that, he fought in March.
Okay.
So he fought twice this year, and then before that, he fought twice in 2018. Mm-hmm. Twice in 2017, twice in 2016.
So he's on a 6-month schedule, in other words.
Yep. So
yeah.
People don't want to fight him. That's what he's saying. He's like, they're ducking me. No one wants to fight Leon Edwards. And I think there's some truth to it.
Well, somebody's going to have to stop this truth. They're going to have to test his work, okay? I mean, personally, I can't think that the UFC has fighters under contract that are actively saying, "Nah, man, I can't do him."
Oh, yes, there are. Oh, my gosh. Let's just go back to the current welterweight champ, Kamaru Usman. No one wanted to fight Kamaru Usman. Everyone above him was like, he's too low ranked. Dude is still undefeated in the UFC.
Oh, yeah.
No one wanted to fight him.
Think about it. Kamaru kept fighting, though. He fought multiple times in a year.
He had to beg.
Putting the name. Hey, you got to beg. All right, Leon, get out there, fight anybody. Say whoever wants to sign this dotted line, please give me in the ring with you.
All right.
That's what I say.
Okay, so somebody who's not going to get to fight anymore, at least in the UFC, is one Gilbert El Nino Melendez, who was cut from the UFC. And I didn't believe it when I saw it. Now, for those people who don't know who Gilbert Melendez is, he goes by the nickname El Nino. He's 37 years old from San Francisco, California. Fights at lightweight. Part of the Diaz brothers camp called Scrap Pack.
Scrap Pack. Yep, this part of the Scrap Pack with the Diaz brothers and Jake Shields.
That's correct. He was 22-8 in his up to this point in his career. Dude was 8-1 in Strikeforce. This is when he came into the UFC. Remember, Strikeforce was purchased by the UFC, and dude went from 8-1 in Strikeforce, one of the most feared fighters in Strikeforce, to 1-6 in the UFC. The UFC is real. It destroys fighters' careers.
Nobody's walking away with an O. The only person that I honestly think is going to retire with an O in the UFC is Khabib. He's the only one that I can think of that will keep his O all the way to the end.
I think there's a fighter named El Cucuy. Tony Ferguson. Best chance.
How many times? They setting up for 5 times now? This will be the 5th, 6th, 7th.
Hey, listen, you yourself should be one to say, even after numerous false starts, you finally get into the ring and fight, you come out with the victory.
Exactly, in which I'm glad you brought that up, because
Underdog.
I hear challenge, Ryan, even though he was the one that lost, but I'm willing to make this a complete and ultimate victory for myself.
Okay, people don't know what we're talking about. We're talking about Street Fighter.
Talk about it? Oh yeah, okay.
We're talking about Street Fighter. So we finally got our fight. We finally had it, and John finally won after like 5 false starts. He finally won.
Yeah. Try to make it dirty.
Yeah,
a victory is still a victory.
Yeah. So now John is 1-5. And so he's got 4 more he's got to make just to get to 500. So I'm 5-1. A blind dog finds a bone every once in a while. A broken clock is right twice a day. John finally won. There you go. What else you got to say?
All I'm saying is I'm willing to challenge you on December 7th after the Dominion Fight Championships or fights at Free Play in Richardson. I want to go ahead and we'll play until you feel like you've had enough.
No, it's best of 7. Let's do it. I'm not scared. Right. We'll go live, and we'll put it on freaking Facebook like this is on Facebook. I ain't scared of you.
That's right. I done sent you location, homie. You just
send me location. Hey, speaking of send me location, there's a new one. There's a new one now. It's not send me location. It's I await the battle contract.
You're making me choke.
I await the battle contract. So here we go. I wanted to start this off by talking about Rose Namajunas, but we'll get back to her in a minute. Weili Zhang, she is now the strawweight champion for the women's division, and basically people are like, okay, well, who's she going to fight first as a defending champion? Well, there's one fighter who thinks that she deserves that fight, and that is my girl, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, the queen at strawweight.
You might want to talk to your girl, man, because you might be like, girl, I don't know about this one. Okay, I don't know.
Listen,
you might want to rethink that one.
I gotta say, Weili Zhang can't be any worse than that fight that happened with Valentina Shevchenko. I mean, that was about as bad a butt whipping as I've ever seen Joanna Jędrzejczyk take. So what's happened is Weili Zhang, she was just talking, and she's like, hey, for my own division, Rose Namajunas is a very good fighter, and I respect her a lot. But if the UFC wants me to fight Joanna Jędrzejczyk, no problem. I can definitely beat her. Which I guess got on Joanna Jędrzejczyk's nerves, because she was like, I signed an agreement for the fight with Michelle Waterson. Like, she was like, I'm going to go ahead and dispatch Michelle Waterson, and I'm going to go ahead and sign this agreement for Weili Zhang in the process as well. You go ahead and send her the battle contract. She said, I knew that after I got the victory, I was going to fight for the belt. This is what's going to happen next. I'm just waiting for the date and location, and then we're going to rock it. She said, anywhere, anytime, Bangkok, Sri Lanka, Warsaw, Toronto, it doesn't matter where. For me, it doesn't matter. I will make it my way. Even if we got to take a canoe, I will make it to China and beat the beep out of her.
Wow.
That is why Joanna Jędrzejczyk is my girl. Why am I wearing red and white? Poland, baby. That's how they do it.
Oh, my goodness. Apparently, she's a little upset.
So this is what's funny. So then Weili Zhang responds and goes, she seems very angry. Don't worry. She will calm down. She wrote on Instagram, I am ready now. Call my manager or call Dana White. I'm ready. So let's not send me location. Send me battle contract. I am waiting. I await the battle contract. John, December 7th, I await the battle contract.
I got you, man. Okay, I got you. Want a battle contract? I'll get you a battle contract.
So all the while, all this is going on, and we have Rose No Hair Thug Namajunas just sitting there chilling. I mean, last time we saw her, she was getting reset, getting dropped on the top of her head. by the pile driver herself, Jessica Andrade.
Yeah, she got turned. She took the literal shape of the L that she took that night. I mean, it was yeah. Oh, I just popped my neck just thinking about it. Oh man,
See.
hey, see, that's what I'm talking about. But yeah, apparently, in an interview, she was saying that slam has apparently cured her of all her issues, which I think, and I'm gonna say it right here. I'm looking around. We found the reset button.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So people have problems, just turn them upside down, bloop, drop them on their head, and that's it. They're fixed.
And then you just go get them a glass of water. Be like, baby, are you okay?
Yeah.
You don't get. Are you okay?
But see, you can't hit them on the top of the head. It's not you have to turn them upside down and drop them, and that's you got to drop them directly on the top of the head. If you miss, you could have brain injuries or neck injuries, some of that. So you got to be your nickname needs to be Pile Driver.
Yes, please.
Bata Estaca, if you want to get it done. I speak in that Portuguese.
Yeah, the enough Portuguese to get you in a fight. Yes, we understand. But I mean, and let us say it out here. We at Combat Sports Talk do not endorse or condone violence that has not had a contract signed behind it and a whole lot of money promised. Okay, that's it. Don't beat your woman.
Oh my goodness! Why'd you go there? Oh my gosh!
I know there's one guy there that's looking over at his girlfriend like, you know what?
Oh no! Do you know how hard it is to edit you out of video? I'm just saying. Like, do you know? Like, we can't do this. Come on, man. Oh my goodness!
It's okay.
Oh my goodness!
It's okay. Just let it happen, man. Just let it happen.
So there's some upcoming fights that I'm really excited about. So I'm going to just go through the list. I want to get your reactions. Darren Till versus Robert Whittaker. It looks like it's going to happen in London. Both of them have verbally agreed to fight.
That's going to be a complete banger right there. I think it's going to be a banger. However, no, I'm good with that. I'm really good with that. I think I see Robert Whittaker coming out on top on that one.
You don't have to make your pick. You don't have to eat. I don't want you to eat crow this early.
Oh man, it's been a while. Yeah.
So Macy Barber versus Roxanne Modafferi, UFC 246. That's signed.
Man, well, we knew this was going to happen one day.
Happy Warrior.
I don't know, man. Macy Barber. You know,
Macy Barber.
She got action. She got action man voice. So I don't know, man. That right there, I think, like I said, another burner, man. I'm telling you.
Andrea KGB Lee's fighting Lauren Murphy. Now, this looks like it's going to be at UFC 247 in H-Town. I think we might try to get a road trip and go watch that.
Can we get a press pass? That's what I need to know.
We might. Frankie Edgar versus Corey Sandhagen. His first fight at 135.
I hope he's still fast.
You know what's crazy is that Frankie Edgar used to fight at 155.
Mm-hmm.
He is the former 155-pound champion, lightweight champion. Went down to 145, couldn't bring home the gold there. Now is going to 135. That's 20 pounds of difference. It gets harder to cut that weight when you're older.
So my question is, was he bulking up to 155, or is he going against the grain and actually losing the weight to come down to 135? Because aren't there rules in place that shouldn't allow for that?
Well, there are rules in place in California, but not anything in particular. More broadly, JDS Junior Dos Santos versus Curtis Blaze.
Woo! Sorry, Sagano, not tonight.
Luke Rockhold versus Nick Rodriguez.
Still fighting?
This is Polaris. It's BJJ. After that Jan Blachowicz jawbreaker.
Yeah.
Luke Rockhold's not. He's not fighting. Yeah, he's just going jiu-jitsu. You don't get your jaw broken that way.
Yeah. Brazilian jiu-jitsu is all you got now.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
OSP versus Ryan Spann. I'm glad to see OSP back. Derek Lewis versus Ilir Latifi. Ilir Latifi is the latest 185er to go. No, he's a 205er going up to 265. I don't think that's a good idea for Ilir Latifi. He was already undersized at 205. I think he's getting ready to find out how big the Giants get.
Unless he's a giant himself.
He's not. He's a little dude.
I mean, he's a little dude. I know, but he could be. He could be like short Squatto. Okay, he could be like he could be like the Anvil instead of the Iranian Hulk. I believe is his name.
Yeah.
He could be the Iranian Anvil. Now.
No, he's Swedish, but okay.
Yeah, sure.
But he's fighting Derek Lewis in Derek Lewis's hometown of Houston, Texas.
That's not going to end well.
No, not too good.
But we say that. And remember, we have the Melvin Guillard, the young assassin. He was fighting in his hometown and got disintegrated by Joe Lozon.
Well, there you go.
Remember that.
And then finally, John Bones Jones, Dominic Reyes, February 8th, UFC 247 in Houston, Texas. We got to get a road trip.
Apparently, we're going to have to get a road trip. All right. Love him, hate him. John Jones is fighting.
That's going to be huge. It's going to be huge.
I hope so, because slowly but surely, we are finding out John Jones' riddle. We're slowly we're getting this close to the answer.
Nope.
We're getting this close, John. This close, John.
Mm-mm.
I'm not talking mess to you. Mm-mm. Please don't run up on me, because you messed me up. But you better this man. This. All
right, and the last fight that's coming up, and that's coming up this weekend. Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz 2, Saturday, November 23rd, 2019, MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. There's 3 key fights on this card. The first one is Leo Santa Cruz versus Miguel Flores. They're fighting for a vacant WBA Super Featherweight Championship. This is boxing, by the way, folks. You got the WBA Super Bantamweight Championship, Brandon Figueroa versus Julio Ceja. And then the WBC Heavyweight Championship, Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz 2. Ortiz, they fought back in 2018 in March. It was a competitive fight. Luis Ortiz was winning on the cards until Kakaya. He got knocked out in the 10th round.
Sadness.
All right, flash fight pick.
You want me to? I'll take Wilder. On any day that ends in Y.
All right, Deontay Wilder. I got Deontay Wilder as well. But Deontay's got to learn how to be a little bit more technical. I just think that he's going to get outpointed. His next fight's likely against Tyson Fury. I think Tyson Fury had him outpointed. I think Luis Ortiz had him outpointed. Dude, you can't just rely on the knockout. You're not going to get it every single time. I know you have. There's no evidence that says. I mean, there's only one fight that he didn't get the knockout. But you can't live and look for that knockout every single time, and that's the concern that I have for him.
Exactly. He needs to have a backup plan.
All right. So follow us on social media. On Instagram, I'm at Combat Sports Talk.
And I'm at Keys to Victory, and that's Keys with a ES.
All right. You can also find us on our website at www.combatsportstalk.com. And we are on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. You can find this video on Facebook and on YouTube.
We everywhere now. We everywhere.
All right.
Can't get away from us.
So, go ahead.
I'm sorry. We're not Combat Sports Talk LA. We are Combat Sports Talk. There is an LA version of us, apparently.
Well,
I don't know how long they've been there.
He's been there a while. We started right around the same time. I'm a little bit ahead of him because I had my blog and everything else for him. But he's an interesting dude. Not trying to shout him out or anything, but he is an MMA fighter who really likes sports. His fighter name is Combat. So he is Combat Sports Talk.
Get out.
That's what it is. And so I already had Combat Sports Talk, the name, so he is Combat Sports Talk Los Angeles. But he talks about all kinds of sports, football, basketball, whatever. So he does exist, and he's been making videos on YouTube for a very long time, but we're going to catch up to you, homeboy. How you like
days
that,
are numbered.
homeboy? All right.
All up in your area, player.
All right, here we go. Want to send a shout out to the people that I get the stories from. That's MMA Junkie, MMA Fighting, MMA Mania, and Bloody Elbow, and all the other sites that are providing great content for stories we use on this show. Anything else before we go, Mr. Keys?
Today is the day that the GSP his title reign began when he beat Matt Hughes.
That's great
Believe it
news.
or not.
All right. Shout out
this day in history.
Shout out to GSP. All right, here we go. We are heading out. So that's our show. On behalf of John Keys, I'm Ryan Smith, reminding you to keep your hands up, your chin tucked, and throw bombs. We'll catch you next time.